DIY.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to trim the bottom of a door. You know, when you open the door and it just scrapes the bottom of the floor, and in this case it's carpet, so we're not worried about making any marks on the floor. However, it does make a little bit of an aggravating sound. Let me show you how to trim that the right way. Alright, the first thing you want to do is close the door and look at the gap on the bottom of the door. Now if you look over here, you see that we have a gap here. And what we don't want to do is cut this and make it even bigger because it's not affecting anything. But if you look down, you'll see here, this is the problem. This is where it's tight. That's where it's hitting the floor. So we're going to open the door and let's take a better look at it. And here it is. Now it's hitting the floor right here. And over here, we still have that gap. So it's important to do it with the door closed and then open it up and move it around, and to make sure that you're not going to have to keep cutting it. So it's clear to me that we just have to trim a little bit off of this side. But what's real important is you're not going to just trim the door from here to here where the gap begins, because then that'll make it ugly. On the carpet it's not so bad, but if the door was sitting on top of a tile floor or a wood floor, you would really notice it. So let's take the door down and I'll show you how we cut this. Now I'm removing the door. How I like to do it is just remove the hinge pin, just pop it right out, all three of them, then just remove the door. If for any reason your door is painted, the hinge has been painted many times and it's really thick, you can try to remove the screws, but I really don't suggest it. Just remove the pins if you can, but you have the alternative to remove the screws. So let me show you how to pull the pins out at least. I'm going to show you how to remove the pin out of the door. Simply just get the screwdriver, put it under the pin like that, and using a hammer, give it a couple whacks. And there it goes. And once the pin starts coming out from the top, you get the screwdriver, just put it under it, give it a couple whacks, and there goes your hinge pin. Now you just want to do the rest of them and pull the door back out. Alright, I'm going to put the door outside and set up on some sawhorses. Now if you remember, this is the side right here that was hitting on the floor, and this side, in our case was the left side, the hinge side, was not hitting. We had a gap right over here. Now, by looking at this door, it looks like somebody definitely trimmed this before, but it's all crooked. It's pretty ugly looking. And like I said before, if this was on a tile floor or a hardwood floor, it would be pretty nasty looking. You would definitely notice it. So remember, we don't want to cut down this area, but we want to cut this side. And we want to cut it in a straight line. So what we're going to do is use a straight edge. It could be anything that's straight. I like this nice 4-foot ruler. And put it on the edge that does not need to be cut, that you don't want to cut. Put it nice and flush right against it. And then bring it down. In our case, was about 1/4 inch, if not less, that we want to take off. And we're going to mark it and keep a straight line right here. And you see, we're only going to cut it to about here. And right here, the ruler's pretty flat against it. So we'll go ahead and make a line on it. Pen doesn't write very well. And there you have it. There's the line that we want to follow. Nice and straight. So, let's get cutting. Before we cut that, I want to show you. You can see the line that I made, and what the door was cut like once before. You can see that it's pretty ugly looking. We'll follow that line down, and you can see the line actually starts to disappear here. So once we cut it, we're going to end up with a straight door. It's going to be much nicer looking. Okay, I reinstalled the door, and as you can see, we have a little gap over here, which is not touching the floor. And you go over, and that gap stays pretty consistent. And if you remember, over here is where we had the gap the first time, and it stayed that same amount of gap. It stayed on touch. Otherwise, if we just made it a straight line, like square to the door, then we would have the gap that we needed here, but then on this side, this gap would have gotten bigger. So by doing it with that method, which is really a great method, it stayed consistent. So it looks much nicer. And by looking at it, you would never know that line was crooked, would you? Not bad at all. Hey, just because it looked good doesn't mean that it is good. Let's see. Huh? Doesn't touch the floor at all. Really nice. Yep, came out pretty good. The door we cut today was a solid wood pine door. Chances are you may have one of those. You may have a masonite colonist door or a hollow core door, which is the smooth on both sides, which are hollow, but usually the bottom of them is going to give you a couple inches of meat. Once you get past that, then it's just hollow and flimsy, so you want to try not to cut too much on those doors. In this video, I use a circular saw, which I always really use on cutting the doors, but you can use a planer, stuff like that. But I like to using a circular saw, using the straight edge and following that straight edge, because then I know for sure I'm going to get a nice straight, even cut. But as well, be very careful on what blade you use on it. You don't want to use a blade that you're going to go cut a tree down, or you're using for rough cut lumber. You want to use a fine tooth blade on it. So this way, the other side's not going to get all torn up and stuff. Then that's going to look even worse than if the door was hitting the floor. Hey, I have one more thing to show you on the threshold. Now say you have a metal door, which a lot of people do for the exterior. Well, metal doors really can't be cut. They have a seal on the bottom, and of course they're metal. But what they do have is a metal threshold on the bottom. Now, the exterior doors are not designed to be cut, because the threshold here, it gives you enough on it. But if you look closely, you'll see screws. Not all of them, but quite a bit of them will have these screws. Now these screws are not to hold the threshold down, but they adjust it to go up and down, which would ride against the seal on the bottom of the door. So in that case, no trimming the door, metal or fiberglass. You're not going to trim either one of those, but just adjust these screws, and this will adjust it. A good way of doing it is adjust it down, close the door, to where it's not hitting, of course, and then shine a flashlight through the other side while looking through. And if you see any light, then it's too loose. Then you just got to tighten it up a little bit. What you want to try to do is try to adjust it evenly. You don't want to adjust it so it's like an ocean, but evenly. It's a pretty simple thing to do.